Welcome back, everyone. And I'm excited about this next panel that Ebony's going to lead us in again. We talk about how the advancement of technology is really advancing our society. But there's also an issue with technology advancing our society and leaving behind people of African American descent. So I'm going to drop the mic back into Ebony's hands, and they're going to talk equity in technology.
Okay, welcome back as we have this incredible and important conversation. I want to start by allowing my esteemed panelists to introduce themselves so that we have a sense of the expertise that will be participating in this phenomenal conversation. Jade, I'll start with you.
Hello, my name is Jade Mays. I am a senior program manager at Meta, and I'm also CEO and founder of Next in Ops.
Thank you.
Great. James Francis, I'm the president and CEO of Paradigm Asset Management Company, which is a data-driven investment firm.
Great. Asosa.
My name is Asosi Gadaro. I'm one of the co-founders of Black Women Talk Tech. We are the largest network of Black women tech and scalable business owners. So we build technology to help advance the world in all shapes, forms, and industry.
Fantastic. Thank you all. As Kimberly said, innovation is incredible. Technology is the way in which we as civilized societies have advanced economically, politically, and otherwise. And that rings true, especially for Black Americans. And yet, with innovation, there are challenges. We know innovation is the cornerstone through which we keep our respective industries on the vanguard, on the cutting edge of the next big thing. Here we're talking about artificial intelligence, or as we call it, AI, and it's becoming a tool by which corporations are making huge decisions, including hiring. More and more, we're seeing AI being relied upon. It's creating algorithms to expedite and extrapolate, information from data. Again, these key decisions for the directions of companies, the futures of companies, and also our governments. It's meant to be applied objectively and fairly and with non-biased elements, but we know that technology is ultimately created by human beings. And as humans, we have inherent bias. And this is due to a lot of factors, but part of it is the lack of diversity in the creation and implementation of these technologies. And we know that that compromise of objectivity can implement far-reaching consequences for Black Americans, and in many cases, accuracy and truth. Again, you've met this esteemed panel. They've introduced themselves just a little bit. They're going to help lead us in how this industry, and AI specifically, can create opportunities for growth and advancement for Black Americans, where the risks associated with it lie, and how ultimately we can come to benefit as a Black community. So thank you. I want to start with you, Ms. Jade. In your opinion, talk about the future of AI and how it will impact the daily lived experience of most Black Americans.
That's a great question. And I'd like to start just with some housekeeping. I'm here in a personal capacity. None of my thoughts are my own, and none of them represent Meta as a company or their partners. Okay, we got that out of the way.
Right.
Okay. All right. And so you're talking about the future of AI, or see the future of AI. And it's what's so fascinating, and what I think is exciting about AI. Yes, it presents problems, but it's also very exciting is that it is so fast-paced and it's always changing every day, minute by minute, second by second. It's getting feedback right now that's feeding back in, that's creating something else interesting and new. So I think the future AI presents a lot of opportunities to help level the playing field in a lot of ways, because there's so many things that and access opportunities that were not there before, from business owners being able to start up websites to a myriad of other things, but also similar to what we hear, there are also issues with equity as well. But I just think that the future of AI is going to look not too dissimilar to how things are today. AI is a tool, and like all tools, it depends on how we wield it and use it, and how we use it responsibly, and how we choose to move forward in the future with it. Yes, I think it's going to create some amazing opportunities and technologies, but I also think we need to be responsible and really be critical and think about how we want to how we want to envision that future with it, and we need to be very disciplined and intentional about it.
Indeed. James, I'll ask you the same question. How do you see AI showing up in the daily lives of most Black Americans?
Well, I think it kind of depends, right? So we're at a point right now where AI is going to be in our lives with or without an invitation. And I would say for the most part, without. So it's already impacting our lives. And I think the important issue is how can we be involved in shaping that future? So as Jade mentioned, there's many, many opportunities, but there's a huge risk that it could set us back, right? And what I mean by that is new economies, new businesses are being created off of this technology. It's going to happen at a pace faster than any other transformation in our history. And right now, I would say we are not prepared. We're not at the table. So we'll be impacted. We'll be impacted in lending, in housing, in jobs, healthcare. But will we participate? Will we be creating the new businesses? Will we be educating our children with it? And if we're not at the table, if we're not part of the design process, I can assure you that we will fall further behind.
James brought up participation, Esosa, and I guess I want to ask you, based off of your work, what do you think a best practice would look like for Black Americans to be participatory in this AI advancement?
The great part about this is that technology allows everyone to participate at any pace that you'd like to engage in it. And the greatest part about it is with AI, it's machines talking to each other based on all this data and input and assumptions designed by the makers. And so the way that it works is the more you play with it, the more it's better to understand who you are, your cultural norms, the information that is important to support and set you up for success. So the best way for our communities is to get involved. And so a big part of what our mission is to help Black men and women build the next, billion-dollar technology company that impacts communities of color and the world. Because when you're building technology for everyone, it means you have to be intentional about that design and bring so many people to the party so that you are solving the problem for everyone. And so that means different voices. That means playing with all the different new technology advancements, even from OpenAI and ChatGPT, and making sure it has some of these cultural norms. Because even now, when you play with these tools, it doesn't understand certain idioms or cultural norms that come with Black culture. And so if that's missing, that means it's not going to be able to solve certain problems or inherent things that are important to our culture, whether it is, just common communication or healthcare or, just development of real estate. Every asset of life will change, and it's only works when we get involved and we're participating in the design seat of that table.
So I have a confession. I am totally triggered by this entire panel because I'm old school. I am. I'm a geriatric millennial, and I think that's the official title for it. I'm 40 in September. Well, y'all do the math. And while I appreciate the benefits of technology, there is something very scary to me about going into this AI territory. For example, I'm like the rest of us in a million WhatsApp group chats with all the best and brightest of Black America. And someone says, just yesterday, anybody know a good resume writer? And so I copy and paste a company, an old school brick and mortar. And then someone puts, y'all already know, ChatGPT. They put ChatGPT. And I said, oh my God. I saw my life flash before my eyes because I said, this is the way of the future, and like the immediate future, right? Like this is how people are constructing resumes. This is how people, like you said, they're going to be applying for mortgages. They're going to be going through underwriting processes. And I felt triggered because I am hesitant to participate because of my own kind of fears, but I also intelligently know enough to know that we have to overcome culturally some of that hesitation and reluctancy if, to James's point, we are to not get even further behind in an economic wealth gap. So we're here today under the banner of equity in black and white. Jade, please talk to us about what equity in technology looks like.
Yes, equity in technology. It's difficult because I feel like this is it's a still it's a developing field right now. It's still underway. You know, I can't say that we're there yet. We're still working on that. You know, even on the team that I work on, a civil rights team at Meta, and you know, defining for any team out there that can say they know what equity is right now is, I don't know if anybody can. We're still figuring that out. But it's about being intentional and making it count every day. And what I do in my job is, you know, I'm the get it done person. I'm the Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. How are we measuring and as best as we can for this? And if this is not right, okay, what do we need to go back to a drawing board and see that we need to do? So I think it's constantly developing, but I think it's important to recognize that it is instead of people feeling like we're already at a destination. And if we're consistently curious and honest about where we are, and honest and transparent about where we are externally to partners and anyone else, I think that is how I think about what it means to have equity in technology, because it's a partnership. It is constant feedback and giving back out something that's using that feedback and just iterating and doing the best that you can. So to me, that's what equity in technology is: transparency, it's iterating, and it's getting stuff done. But I'm biased because I'm a program manager. So
No, I appreciate that.
Yes.
James, what about for you? How do you see the equity construct showing up in technology and AI specifically?
So, you know, equality makes the assumption that we all are starting from the same place.
Right.
And so when I think about equity in AI or equity in technology, if we're going to have equity, we have to first recognize and admit that it's not equitable.
Yeah.
We're not at the table. We're not part of the design process. We are not, the public policy is not there to shape the technology in the correct way. Access to the technology, affordability. So to create equity in technology, and that's why the rush, we have to be involved in, first we have to have, we know it, we know it's not equal, but we have to make the designers, and there's a constant conflict between the creators, the businesses that will create these technologies, and the implications on the user.
Yes.
And so we have to make sure that we are part of the process, part of the design, adequate systems of monitoring. We have to have equal opportunity to participate. And this is one of the things that I'm most concerned about. While there are many, many applications that can help solve some problems in our community, where are the dollars that will flow to our community? Because right now, like any technology, it's profit motivated.
Right.
And so are we going to see affordable housing get its fair share and other things like that right now? So I think that's how we can help define equity or equality and equity. Yeah.
Great. Asosa, do you have commentary?
Yeah, so for me, I think technology and equity, especially when it comes to AI, is just really having fair and just access and distribution of technology, and making sure that, again, we have the right data sets and inputs from diverse backgrounds, perspective, and people to be able to inform and support the advancements of the problems we're solving with technology. You know, technology, you know, like Jade said earlier, is going to change every aspect of your life, especially when it comes to AI. And so AI has been here for a long time, right? This is the first time where you see opportunities of AI in your present day actually advancing your productivity and how you live your life that you're using today. But, you know, in the past, we've seen AI interact with you from Spotify building your playlists or from, you know, getting access to a dealership and getting access to your keys, of being just automated, no one there, and you're just using image recognition to recognize your face to say this is you, so you get access to this material or box or what have you.
Right.
And so technology is definitely here to stay. It's just important that we are around the design of that input. And I can't stress that enough, especially supporting the organizations of people who are building technologies that have you in mind, and that's coming from a diverse background. And so it's super important as you impact millions, and even if you have a business case for technology, right? As you see this country growing in numbers of more and more the new majority of Black and people of color being the majority in the next less than 20 years, you have to build technology that informs the future consumer, which is the people on the stage. So if you don't do that, you miss out even on the, you know, opportunity to make money as a business, or the opportunity to have informed decision to design properly for that consumer. And so just stressing equity needs to have important design, important access, and dollars to help fund those companies that are building today's future.
Yeah, I just want to take a moment to sit with the premise that Asosa just really challenged us all with, and challenged the entire technological industry with. What I heard you say, put another way, is like everything else in American and really global societies, this technology has been built around white-centeredness, right? And so if we look at two things, the kind of global majority, which are melanated people, and then, as you say, in the next 20 years, even a domestic American majority that will be melanated people, it is inexcusable to have any form of technology which shows up with bias is one way to put it, but just an inefficiency to serve literally melanated people. I'm sure many of us at a minimum have started reading headlines about lawsuits that have already been filed against certain pockets of artificial intelligence, whether it's in job searches, headhunting, that are literally filtering out, pun intended not, literally filtering out melanated and darker skinned applicants. And it's a problem. And we know it's a problem that's directly correlated to us not being at the table at creation, and then the creators defaulting to white-centeredness. So with that said, as a premise here for this next question, Jade, how does AI perpetuate or amplify existing biases and inequalities in our society? And if you could speak to any examples, again, not meta, your personal ones.
Yeah.
To be very clear, I was a lawyer in my past life. I will protect you, sis. Ways in which that shows up. Yeah.
Ways in which that shows up. Could you repeat it?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a big question. How does AI perpetuate or amplify existing systemic biases and inequalities in our society? And then this is the ask. Give us an example of a time when a lack of that equity in AI has had a negative consequence in your work experience, your professional experience.
Yes, that is a big question. And I think that when thinking of, and one of the things I've seen work really well in my work experience when it comes to this is you need to have people at the table who are on the ground, who that is their experience. They don't have to be they don't have to know about AI at all times. It's great, and you definitely need talented people working on it. But organizations like the Urban League or any other organizations that represent the people who are going to be interacting with and will bear the consequences of if AI or who the person who's wielding AI is doing something irresponsible or knowingly or unknowingly. It's really important to make sure you listen to them. I've seen in both cases where there was an organization that wasn't listened to, and again, I say knowingly and unknowingly because a lot of times people only work on things, whether they're software engineers or companies. Some are, some may be well-meaning, maybe some aren't. Regardless of what it is, a lot of times you can't see past your own experience, your own lived experience. So to Asosa's point about having diverse teams in the design phase, if you are not listening to your customers, which is a basic premise in business, and you want to continue on your business, you want to be profitable, you need to listen to your customers so you can take that feedback and iterate on your product. If you're not listening to your client because you feel that you already have your own personal lived experiences and you project your own lived experiences onto those groups, that's where it starts to go wrong. And I think there are cases where it's gone wrong because the groups maybe not have been listened to, again, not for necessarily malicious purposes, but people take pride in their business. Like, I'm building something great.
Yeah.
I don't. I hear you, but you're not a software engineer. You're not this. You're not that. Yes, but I'm the customer.
Right.
This is still happening to me in my communities. So it's very important, regardless of what the background is to constantly take feedback from your clients at all times. And I see that go really well. In my professional experience, that's when it goes the best. When you have those quarterly meetings, you have those hard conversations where they say, look, you know what, this ain't it. You did this wrong, and you need to be held accountable.
James, let's go a little deeper into what those tangible consequences look like. So when that feedback is not received, when people are not listening, when people are not making the adjustment per the consumer feedback, how does that show up in harmful ways to Black America?
Sure. So, this, even though we're talking about this going forward, it's already happening and impacting us, right? So, as you mentioned, AI is not new. So, lending. The way algorithms work right now, clicks send certain information to certain people. There's studies that prove that African Americans are offered higher interest rate credit cards, higher interest rate loans. And so wherever there's human bias, AI is not going to clean it up, it's going to exacerbate it.
Wow.
Our culture is being co-opted. One of the biggest Black models right now is a AI created model owned by a white male who's pulling down massive amounts of money, being hired by major corporations to be their spokesperson. And it's an African American woman who has been created by a white male. And these things are happening right now.
Wow.
Names. So
Yeah.
we know that our names are being filtered on a daily basis. There's a study by Princeton, took 2 million names. European names have a positive association.
Yep.
African American names have a negative association. There are children in California, infants 3 years old, who are on the gang database as known gang members because of their name.
Gang database.
Gang members,
Yeah, wow.
3 months old. And so it is happening. I mean, I could go on and on and on.
Right.
So it's in employment. You mentioned the employment. I mean, Amazon had to get rid of their methodology because what they did, they took all their engineers, they took 10,000 applications or resumes,
Right.
fed it into their system, took their existing engineers, cross-referenced and said, this is what we are looking for. So that's what they trained it on. 60% of the applicants were white males. 74% of the senior management, white males.
Wow.
So what did the algorithm look for? White males.
Yeah.
And it disqualified women. So if your resume said you went to Smith College,
Yeah.
a women-owned,
Spelman, yeah.
right, that didn't
Kicked
match
out,
up.
yeah.
Right.
Wow.
So, and that's today what we're dealing with, and so the acceleration of that.
Right.
And it's also interesting, like, let's talk about the criminal justice system.
Let's.
Compass, which is deciding on, and judges right now are not even listening to counsel. They're pushing the button saying, what does AI say? Should I give you bail? And disproportionately, African Americans are being penalized because the data that it was trained on goes by demographic, zip code, high crime, and then crime, I could go on and on and on.
Right.
Policing,
Yeah.
profiling.
Yeah. I can also tell you where that's for sure showing up just because of my experience as a criminal defense lawyer. Sentencing. We already know, studies have told us that literally not only do black defendants get sentenced, convicted at higher rates proportionally than whites and sentenced for longer, the darker the hue. Literally,
Absolutely.
the darker the hue, the longer the sentence. So this is
Right.
very frightening.
This goes back to slavery. Right?
Sure.
This goes back to race is not a biological
Socially
construct.
constructed,
It's
yeah.
a political construct.
Totally.
And that is making its way into these AI systems.
Indeed, so. I can tell you got a lot to say.
Oh my God. I was
Please.
like, waiting.
Yes.
So this is a very big topic, especially as we're looking to create safeguards for the technology, because people don't realize how powerful technology is, especially when it comes to information like cleaning the data of the information that's supposed to be equitable for all people. So, like, making sure that we don't increase and exacerbate the already biased information that exists. Because what the machines are doing, right, is they're just taking large data sets. So, like, all the things you're Googling and getting a search result from, they're just taking all of that and saying, hey, computers, talk to each other and build solutions with this particular criteria. Here's what we're looking for, just like what was stated before. And the challenge with that is if the data isn't clean or designed with you in mind, like, marginalized communities suffer the most. And we can talk about, some of these information from, like, a simple example. So I don't know if this happens to anyone in this room, but, back in the day, you'd go to the airport, you use the bathroom, you try to go ahead and wash your hands. You put your hand underneath the automatic image recognition faucet that's supposed to dispense water. Not working. Try again. Not working. I used to have to tap someone who was lighter than me to go ahead and wipe against so that I can wash my hands. So what happened, right? In that one example, what does that mean?
Wow.
That model was designed with people who were fairer skinned, and they didn't take into the account people of dark hues. And so that's just a simple example of someone who created that business that's supposed to solve a problem for everyone who uses the bathroom and wants to wash their hands, right? Cleanliness is important, right?
Next to godliness.
Okay. and so that is just one simple example of how data sets needs to be diverse, especially as we start to use image recognition, which was my first company I started, to help live an easier, faster life or a fuller experience. And why that starts to really get scary is when the policing of Black communities are overly policed, overly judged. And if you start to use this information that has not been clean or designed with you in mind, it goes all the way to 360 view of what what the worst could look like. And so you really need safeguards and people to help kind of structure the data, support the understanding of how this makes sense for you as a lived experience, and for you as a business owner who is building solutions for all.
Wow, I think I speak for a lot of us in this room. I am shocked by some of what has been shared already on this panel. You just blew my mind, sis, because I thought I was crazy. I've been in that situation so many times. And then I'm looking over at the white lady, and her joint working. And I'm like, why my joint ain't working? And now I know why. Wow, okay. Jade, let's get to solutions, right? I mean, like, dumbfound. I'm today years old finding this out. Jade, let's talk about how I just have to take a beat because, again, this is already happening. It's been happening.
Yes.
It's happening now. We can only expect it to get worse as we proceed in future. What can we do to slow down / undo some of this harm that we have identified in this conversation so that this does not continue to leak into criminal justice systems? I have to think about college admissions processes, all of the other ways in which we know this will be completely devastating to Black advancement.
Yeah, and solution-based things, which is always my jam, getting things done, you know. It's really, what's really important in getting back to kind of the feedback and also making sure you're creating a plan of action, and then you're including in a plan of action. Now, plan of action does not mean that is the solution.
Right.
It just means that you're taking very intentional steps towards figuring out the solution. So now, and also too, it takes people. The civil rights team at Meta was started because there was so much outcry from nonprofit organizations holding the company accountable for things that happen. So it's important to not only make sure that you're taking steps to make an action plan and to move towards those solutions, but to also be vocal about what you're experiencing. Yeah. Because had those organizations not been vocal, I would not be here. My team would not be here. So I am a direct product of people being intentional and saying, and their solution at the time was, you know what, I don't know what this is, but this is happening to me. Right. I don't like it. Please do something about it. And I think that is so incredibly important. So that's step one, being vocal and articulating what your experience is, and then creating an action plan and an implementation plan that has check-ins for feedback, check-ins for iterating, and check-ins for like quantifying metrics that you can start to build on to understand and make sure that you're actually complying against the things that you said that you're going to do or that you're attempting to do. And that could look a bunch of different ways. I could go on and on about how that could look. You know, I think any program manager could, but it just depends. But for me, it really is a collaborative effort. It's transparent, and it needs to be honest. Because we can only go so far as we're willing to be honest about where we are. To James's point earlier, we're not that far. Spoiler alert, you know. Yeah. And so it's not okay, but we can get to a better place if we want to be intentional and say, hey, this is where we are. We need to have those hard conversations, and we need to. And nobody likes to quantify anything, and solutions are hard. It's how can you ever quantify equity or quantify someone's experience? Spoiler alert, you cannot. But you can start to. But if you don't do anything, you know, that's not much better than doing, that's not much better than, you can't really solve the problem in that way. Right. So you really have to start to quantify what that means. And then that's the only way that you can get towards a solution, being transparent, creating an action plan, checking back on that feedback, and then really just holding each other accountable through partnerships.
James, your your offering really on how to mitigate this type of harm that is inevitable per this conversation, but also we're at least flagging it and naming it in the process. How do we mitigate?
I think start with awareness. We have to increase the awareness of how these systems are built. We've got to kind of break it down so people understand that it's a combination of the algorithm, the data. Both can be broke. If one side's broke, then it's still bad outcomes. Right. So we need awareness that these tools can be used. We can build there easily. It's never been a time where you can build technology so easy as you can now. We've got to advocate. So from within, So you mentioned the water faucet. There was a much bigger issue that was not very different, but it was the self-driving cars. They did not recognize black people.
Wow.
So the car goes down the street and it has to make a decision. Do I go into the brick wall or run into this, what I can't identify as black elderly couple? It was going to run over them because it
wasn't
knew the
moving.
wall. It didn't know what that was.
Oh my God.
So, but there's internal in these big companies. I think the person who actually made a lot of advancements on the skin color spectrum of this young lady that actually was going to be here, called X. And it took years for her to get the internal buy-in to work on this project. So I think that within big companies, we need to have advocacy. We have to have these discussions. We need to make sure that the design teams are bringing in the right people, because some of these things are not intentional. I don't think anyone made the water faucet intentional not to turn on, right? They just did not think that, hey, we need
It's just
representation.
a default centering of whiteness. which
But and
shows
that's
up,
the way the world
yeah,
is,
all
right?
the time, sure.
And
yeah.
and that's what we have to be aware of. Anything that's happening today is going to show up in these systems. And so we can advocate. We need to get our public legislation, government involved at every level, because they can provide and help with the awareness, with the funding, and pushing the right technology. And I don't want to be a doomsday, because at the same time, there's never been a more exciting time
Sure.
to create. And the opportunities is somewhat of a equal start, right? We did not participate in these other major transformational periods in our development. Here's another chance. So the question is, what are we going to do with it?
Yeah. I have to take some accountability as a member of the media, right? I think that we have got to, just in this conversation, the fact that in the green room, James had asked me if I covered AI on my show that I host on the Griot, and my answer was yes, but I'm going to go back home with a charge to do much, 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 much more of this coverage. These stories from a media lens have got to be told. We've got to better understand them. We need to understand the stakes, to your point, and both the risk, but also, I agree, enormous opportunity. If we can figure this thing out in a way that can work at least equitably, if not even, dare I say, to our advantage as a culture.
Yeah.
Because, spoiler alert, affirmative action as we know it is going away probably this summer. I very much hate to break that to y'all, but with this 6-3 court we're looking at, I think we know what time it is. So we've got to anticipate, what are we doing to make sure that melanated students are getting opportunities for higher education? And I think this, from an opportunity lens, could be key
Absolutely.
if we figure out best practices. Asosa, please.
Yes, I would say what companies can do today that can make the difference for tomorrow in solving our challenges of making a really great solution, which is the intention, right? Is to make sure we have people of color, primarily Black people, on the boards, in higher management, making decisions that have the background and understanding of how to support data-driven decisions, which is what most companies do. They look at things at a high 30,000-foot view based on certain metrics. And in order to do that effectively, and especially with the use of technology like AI, you really need to, again, have, I can't stress this enough, more diverse thoughts, people, designers at the table to help engineer the best outcomes. And what does that look like if we're wanting to be more intentional about the future around how you create solutions for people of color? Is making sure, if you are intentional about being culturally diverse, and you know majority of your population is maybe in lower positions within your company that might be replaced because of the advancements of AI. What does that look like in terms of reskilling or supporting the advancements of those people so that you do not lose the cultural richness and understanding that is needed to support the best solution possible, so that you can have a business that thrives and lasts tomorrow. Because if you do not do that, if you do not consider and plan for this now, you will not have a business to go to.
Wow.
And that's a promise, because the people of this country are becoming more and more melanated. So you have to design with them in mind if you want their support, those dollars, as well as being a true fabric of the community. Business is community. And as I stand here as a community leader of businesses, of people of color, primarily Black businesses, we do a lot around designing with that in mind and hoping that you understand the importance and the leadership that it takes to do this every day. And I also would just also create another solution or opportunity outside of just hiring as a company, is looking at companies that are already building data sets in a way where it is equitable, where they are taking this into considerations, where you can buy and adopt and actually implement within your organizations to help advance what you're looking to get in terms of your solutions. So I just offer that as an opportunity for people to consider and keep.
Indeed. When you talk, Asosa, about the engineering, kind of the internal work, I have to applaud Morehouse College. I do know that they, and I don't think they're alone, but I know that we've covered them. Spelman as well. Yeah, they are implementing, and I don't want to get it wrong. Can you tell me exactly what the program is?
I don't know it specifically, but I know my daughter's participating. She's a computer science.
Fantastic. So this gentleman is saying that his daughter, who is a young lady matriculating at Spelman College, and you're correct, it's Spelman and Morehouse together. Their campus community is spearheading some type of pilot program around AI as a part of the foundational education being implemented at the undergraduate level. And I think that is so inspiring and so powerful, and I expect to see many more HBCUs, North Carolina A&T, Morgan State implement as well. I think that's got to be essential to this. We got to talk about policy. We cannot only talk about the private sector in this work. Policy and government has to play its part. Jade, what do you want to see, expect to see, would suggest that we see from a policy standpoint to increase this equity in technology?
I'd like to see more people who are, I feel like there are a lot of folks in technology who kind of don't want to touch the world of politics, and sometimes vice versa. I would encourage folks who are in, I would like to see more folks who are technologically savvy into politics, because I started my career in government. And so it can be very difficult to write policies on things that you don't know how they work, you know? And it's not by fault. It doesn't mean, you know, it's just hard for someone who doesn't have the background with the rapidness and that things are advancing to be able to write an effective policy on something. It's going to be general. It's going to be easy to not be able to hold people accountable because it just isn't specific enough. And I would love to see more folks who have backgrounds in technology can speak to the more specific needs that will be able to refine it a bit so that when things do matriculate to larger corporations and there is an accountability measure that needs to take place, it can actually be enforced.
Fantastic.
So that's something I'd really like to see.
So what do you see policy-wise?
So with policy, it's very interesting because it's so important to have people who have the background. Because it is so easy to be fooled if you are non-technical by a technical person. So the loopholes there can be so easily exploited. So that's why it's important to have game recognizing game and have people at the seat that can actually speak to, right? And then with AI, the interesting thing with policy is that you can use AI to the advantages of saying, hey, you know, what are some solutions that you would consider that would help support marginalized communities, which help support the greater good as a wide, and they'll give solutions, right? You can use AI to research, to support those. And 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 that's the challenge with using AI. You can use it for good or for evil, right? And so trying to anticipate bad apples or bad actors and asking the AI and saying, hey, how would companies or bad actors exploit the loopholes that I'm not seeing? And it'll still give you a list of options. You can use AI to your advantage. It is the opportunity of a lifetime in terms of what you can use this tool to do. It's just the challenges of having the right people to create the actual guardrails to making it safe, to making it supported. But, naturally in the community of technology, in our communities of technology, it's how can you hack something, right? So they're always trying to push the limits. And so the job of government is to protect its citizens. And so you really need to consider how do you use technology to your best advantage with the interest of the people who are already building it. So you're not going to know how to safeguard that if you don't have those people at the seat. So make sure that you have those people do that for you so you can anticipate some of the challenges, because they're already with ChatGPT and all these different research or chatbots that people are using. They're already figuring out how to jailbreak through the safeguards, right? They're already figured out how to push it to its limits, and like explore even further. So there's opportunities as well as a great responsibility for government to make sure they have those people, they convince those people to be a part of the table, right? Because again, it may not be as interesting for some, but there are organizations that exist already that are looking to build information this way. So.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. James, thoughts on the policy contribution?
So I think that just like we have like the EPA, the FCC, that there's an opportunity for government to provide monitoring, oversight
Yeah.
to set standards.
USDA is another example.
Exactly. So this is at that level,
Good point.
right?
Yeah.
So government, it has to be involved. It's got to set some standards around what is the protocol to make sure that an algorithm is not biased, that it's fair. So where are these standards? Because right now, the private sector is co-opting public policy through these systems. And so that's one role. You talked about being at the table. Well, we're untrained. So government has to step in and put incentives to, one, help with the training and education, two, to push these type of technologies into our communities. So because the private sector is not going to be the first ones to fund the technology to help underserved communities in healthcare right now. So there's a policing aspect. There's the awareness aspect. They promote and promote all other types of commercials and PSAs. Well, they need to be involved in spreading the message around AI. Job training, as I mentioned, incentives. So there's a critical role, but I would say the most important right now, I think there needs to be a pause. I signed a letter with many other people to create a pause in building these major AI systems, because we need to pump the brakes and give time for policy to catch up, which nothing's been done. And I think there's a critical role, but there's a role that we need to play as well, because without that, we have, I think, the most to gain and the most to lose.
That part.
And so we need to be advocating that this public policy be created. And I think the collaboration that Jade mentioned, collaboration between our legacy organizations, our universities. I went to Morehouse, by the way. It's the technology center
Well, that
at the
explains it.
AUC.
That's what-
and that's part of the AI is one part of
Yeah.
what the technology center is all about, and so hopefully other academic institutions will join in. So I think this is an equal part. Well, we need to clean up the past so we can go forward,
Sure.
but we need to be focused on going forward.
Yeah.
But we can't ignore that there's a little cleanup that needs to happen in the meantime.
And if we effectively do the cleanup, what I'm taking from this conversation is the benefit, the reward opportunity is enormous.
Enormous.
That's what I hear. Wow. Jade, Asosa, James, thank you all so much for your expertise and just so many aha moments in this conversation. So with the proliferation of AI being used by both corporate and, as we discussed, government agencies and entities in major decision making, it's so imperative for all of us to get a seat at the table, as we discussed just now.
And another wonderful panel. I think I heard a lot of nuggets about, again, the powers within, but we also need to put pressure on everybody. Pump the brakes. Let's catch up. Let's be inclusive of the African American community so we can go forward.